Today, in our Spotlight series, we're answering your question of the month, and I've asked iCapital Managing Director of Data Solutions, Joe Larizza, to join me in the studio to provide his expert insights. Joe, it's great to have you here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you've been a leader in the data solution space for a long time throughout your career, and I thought this question would be right up your alley. And it's a common one that we get from our clients, which is how should advisors prioritize when they're considering technology for their financial reporting needs? What do you say to that?
Every financial advisor is different, and they have different client types, and they have different investing needs. So whenever I talk to a financial advisor, I say, really understand what your core competency is and how you want to differentiate yourself. Everything else is a commodity, and you should figure out a way to not have to do it. You really should focus on making really good investments, of course, gathering clients and servicing your clients. Mm-hmm. And based upon what you're doing, that's where you should invest in technology. So if you're more of a financial planning based advisor, please focus on financial planning tools. On the other hand, if you are more open architecture and invest in more alternatives, you should certainly look at alternative platforms as the priority.
One thing that I think is universal, regardless of what kind of business you conduct, whether it's more alternatives heavy or trading heavy or something else, is the financial reporting function. So what's key to look for when it comes to financial reporting technology for advisors?
You're absolutely right. As the financial advisor, you want to be that financial quarterback. You want to be able to see all of your clients' assets and liabilities. And only once you can see all those can you really truly identify the risks and the opportunities within the portfolio. So the key is to find a tool that can get you there as quickly and as easily, but also timely and accurately, right? So if you have a lot of clients that have multi-generational wealth, where you need to see not just the family's overall aggregated wealth, but also each individual's, it's very specific that you want to look at. If you have a lot of alternative investments, you want something that could be able to handle capital calls, distributions, and all the different transaction types.
Right. So are we at a place now in this ecosystem where you can get one tool that does all of these different financial reporting things for you, or is it more of a building a service that in turn brings these tools to your disposal?
I think you need to look at the entire ecosystem and figure out a way to stitch them all together. So It may not be a single tool, but you want your tools to talk. And I think that's really the key. But the part that most people overlook is it's not all about the technology. It's about your ability to operate the technology. So you need that educated, dedicated staff that knows how to get the most value at probably what's your biggest operating expense for the firm.
How many technology solutions do you find on average advisors need to integrate and stitch together to deliver that whole suite of capabilities?
Wow, that's a good question. So what we do actually is we take the entire ecosystem and divide it in what we call 15 technology domains. And so if you break it into little pieces, it's a lot easier to look at the technology ecosystem than trying to boil the ocean. So we'll often start by saying, which of these things are important to you? So again, if you're focused on alternatives, let's put most of your time and money there and not necessarily in the trading system.
Well, speaking of alternatives, let's talk a little bit more about how has the reporting technology evolved around alternatives.
Yeah, alts is a great asset class, and it's truly the thing that we see growing the most. When we started our business in 2015, we would find that families had just a few alternatives, and so it was easy to manage. Now we're seeing portfolios where families potentially have 100 positions. And unfortunately, the technology for illiquids has really lagged behind the technology for liquids. So it's still a very manual process to get this information. And many of the families, particularly in the ultra high net worth space, don't have a single financial solution. They may have multiple financial advisors. They're going to have an entire portfolio of alternatives. Maybe they have a group of hard assets, whether it's houses or handbag collections or cars, whatever it is. And they all want to see it in a single place today. And that's been the holy grail that a lot of people haven't been able to deliver. And frankly, if you're the financial advisor that can show them all the insights and risks in the entire portfolio, you're the one that's going to be able to gather the most assets over time. When we talk about insights, to bring it to life, every time there's a crisis, we immediately get a call from a lot of advisors who are trying to figure out, how do I solve this problem? Or we often see it with cash. A lot of people think they're only holding a few percentages in cash, and maybe it's 10 or 15%. And with the market opportunities, that may that may really be able to enhance your portfolio if you know where all that cash is. So.
Right, getting it accurately is definitely crucial. And, you know, my last question for you, of course, Joe, we can't talk about data and technology without talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so what are some of the advances that maybe you're seeing, how we can infuse AI, ML, and make financial reporting more efficient?
We're so excited about what's happening with AI, and I think it's going to be a real change agent for what's going on. So first, it's just in that automation. So back to the point of, it's no longer just 5 assets, it's now tens of thousands of assets and documents. So we're using things like AI document readers to be able to read the information and get it in an accurate and timely way. But what I'm really looking forward to is when it comes to the client reporting side, where it can take the data from alternatives and liquids and synthesize that to not just present data, but also present potential insights that you may not have seen by just looking at a spreadsheet or a very basic chart.
Right. And how close are we to getting those insights?
I'm not sure. I think it's a combination, though, of the technology and people's willing acceptance to adopt that technology.
Well, it's certainly a process and it's an evolution, but sounds like we're making great strides in terms of bringing financial reporting technology to our clients. So, Joe, thank you so much for the work that you do on that, and thanks for joining me in the studio today.
Thank you for having me.
And we'd like to hear from you. Send us an email at yourquestion@icapitalnetwork.com and let us know what questions are at the top of mind for you and your clients. I'm Anastasia Moroso, and thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time on Beyond 6040.